It looks like we have almost everybody, so I think we'll get started. First off, I want to thank everyone for those who are being reappointed and those that are being appointed. I appreciate you guys being on the task force and helping us with this initiative. I'm going to take a roll call real quick here. Okay, I see Angela Semifero is getting on right now. Art Kale. Gary Scott. Nico Sanchez. Eric Beadle. Yep. Gary Tompkins is here. Jeff Albar is in the room, so is Josh Davis. Kelly's online. Lori is online. Monique is online. Mike Knopf is in the room. Dr. Watson's in the room. No dispatch, and we have Sam online as well. Okay, great. I think the first thing we'll do is real quick, I'd like us to go around the room and introduce ourselves, just, where you're from and your role. And again, thank you for joining the task force. Your term will expire on 12/31/26, so it's a 2-year term. So we can start in the room here. Paul, do you want to start?
Sure. Paul Watson, Calhoun Community College.
Doug Farrell, Assistant County Administrator, just here to listen and watch.
But not giving out any money today.
No money. I can't vote on anything,
Jeff Albaugh, Marshall Township Clerk.
Josh Davis with City Marshal.
Ron Calhoun, Calhoun County's GIS Manager.
Mike Knopf, City of Battle Creek Operations Manager.
I'm Lynn Meikle, the Communication Specialist. And Monique, why don't you go ahead?
Who? Me? Nicho. Hi, my name is Nicho Sanchez. I work for Carwell Services. I'm the operational manager, and I just started back in January of this year. So I brand new to this position.
Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you being
Thank
here.
you.
Monique?
Hi, Monique French, Calhoun County Commissioner for District 2.
Kelly?
Did you say me?
Yes.
Hi there, Kelly Scott. I'm the County Administrator Controller.
And we have Mike Watson. Oh, you're muted.
Still muted.
You're still muted, Mike. There you go.
All these years of doing Zoom. Yeah, Mike Watson, Telecom Counsel for the county.
Eric Beadle.
Eric Beadle, Director of IT at Albion College.
All right, we have Gary.
Good afternoon, everybody. Gary Tompkins, Calhoun County Commissioner, District 7.
Okay. Sam.
Going, guys. Sam Larry, Office of State Representative Steve Frisbee.
Angela.
Angela Semifero, Director, Marshall District Library.
And then we have Lori.
Hi, Lori Upright, Calhoun ISD.
Thank you. David.
David Hackett, County IT Director.
And Aaron.
Erin Cummings with the Road Department.
And Amber.
Amber LeClaire, Communications Director.
Great. All right, that's everybody. I appreciate this big group here today. I guess we'll move on, and I need an approval of the minutes from the December meeting. Someone move to support. All right. Anyone second?
Still support. Gary Tompkins.
Gotcha. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Great. Before we get to our legislative update, I just wanted to give everyone, since we have some new people, I just wanted to give a quick background of the task force so we can kind of get on the same page. The task force has been together since 2021. And in these last few years, we have been busy doing a community needs assessment of what it would take to provide broadband services to the county. We conducted focus groups to see what different populations, what their needs were, whether it be or seniors, low income. We did focus groups for them. We looked at different operating models, whether it be public-private partnerships and open access networks. Then we did a feasibility study to figure out what it would actually cost to do this, and hundreds of millions of dollars. Was the outcome of that. We did a lot of grant research, both for digital equity and for infrastructure. We formed a digital equity subcommittee, which we'll hear from our chair of that a little bit later on, to help the digital divide and try and figure out how we can help get internet into the access of those who need it. We also did a map challenge with MyHigh, both actually at the federal level and at the state level, trying to make sure that the maps are correct and that we can get all of our eligible locations together for the BEAD program. So the BEAD program is a $1.6 billion program from the Infrastructure Act that the state is running, and money will be going to internet service providers and those other entities that are applying to provide service for those that are unserved and underserved. So if you have no internet service, or if you have very poor internet service, this BEAD program fills in those gaps where other funding had not been able to reach. This is supposed to be the end all be all of grants to provide everyone with internet access. So that's kind of the background of where we're at right now. We're really concentrating on the BEAD program, and I'll give you an update on that. But at first, I wanted to hear from Mike Watsa. He's our telecom attorney, and he is going to give us an update on what's happening both federally and statewide when it comes to broadband and infrastructure. I'm going to share his notes, and I will send this out after the meeting as well, so you guys can click on all the links that he has prepared for us.
Well,
Go
thank
ahead,
you,
Mike.
Lynn. Thank you, task force members. I really appreciate being here. I think trying to offer some insight, especially when we get down to the second part of the presentation on Washington, is an exciting opportunity to try and get through. So we'll see how it goes. So in Michigan, the good news in all of this that we'll be talking about is that the state and maybe local government have an increasing right, maybe, to regulate the ISPs, the internet service providers, the AT&Ts and Comcasts and Charters, on going right to the heart of their business, which is rate. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but it is a growing movement. I'm hoping Michigan will pick up on it. We have the right kind of leadership in Lansing, so we'll see how that goes. New York, California, Maryland, Minnesota are all pursuing some regulation of the telecoms, which the FCC tried to do with the Internet Neutrality Order. That was struck down. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So that's the good news. And now for the rest of the news. MyHigh continues to develop the BEAD process. Lynn has been on top of that for you, and she'll talk about that in great detail. That whole BEAD process, however, may be subject to some fairly significant change. Generally industry favorable. We'll talk about that in a moment. Our legislature, the Michigan Cable and Telecom Association, the Charters and Comcasts of the world, testified this morning to the House Communications and Technology Committee, and they told their story. Their story is everything's fine. 95% of all Michigan residents have good broadband accessibility. 85% have access to gig speed, and the companies provide voluntary reduced rate programs to the indigent. That's a paraphrase, but I think that's fairly accurate on what they said. Not surprising, but it's always interesting to hear. There was no debate. There was some questions from the committee members, but that was basically the message. The courts, we don't have much going on in the courts in telecom right now in Michigan, although there is a battle looming over the issue of streaming services not paying franchise and PEG fees. Those franchise and PEG fees that we've typically received across the state equal somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 million a year. Those numbers are down about 30% in the last 4 or 5 years, and trying to bring the Netflixes of the world under the Video Service Act and help us make up those losses in cable revenues. All right, switching to the White House and Washington. Well, so as of last week, the president had signed 86 EOs, executive orders, and they are all over the map, of course. I'm not going to even attempt to summarize them, but I gave you a site that can start you down that journey if you're interested. We'll touch on a couple of them here, but meanwhile, of course, DOGE is actively cutting by their website number 105 billion from the federal budget. Obviously, there's folks who are saying something different, but that was the DOGE number. The impact is difficult to grasp at this point. Of course, much of it, some of it at least, is being struck down by the courts. We'll see where it all goes. There is an NLC, National League of Cities summary that I provided you. You have to log in, but if you're not a member, you can log in as a guest, and it will give you the latest updates. The lobbyists they use are the same lobbyists we use at ProTech, which is 100 communities. Calhoun has been a member of ProTech for a few years. We monitor all the telecom and energy issues that go on around the state and the country. So it's pretty good stuff. I urge you to take a look at it and check in on it from time to time if you're being asked about these things. The courts. Well, yeah. So right now, the big issue at the Supreme Court is trying to restart the USF fund, Universal Service Fund, that is paid into by all of us and the telecoms to help fund indigent needs for telecom and to some extent broadband. And that was, of course, struck down by the Fourth Circuit, I think it was, Fourth or Fifth Circuit last year, and is now in front of the Supreme Court to see if we can bring it back to life. That's a big hit, especially on the back of losing ACP, which, by the way, is dead on arrival. It's gone nowhere in Congress and not likely to come back under the current leadership. Okay, now the fun part, the FCC and the courts. So the reason I said at the outset that local government maybe and states seem to have greater jurisdiction and authority over the ISPs is because as the Supreme Court and now the Trump administration and DOGE reduces the authority and the ability of various federal agencies, including the FCC, that authority is being left empty. The FCC has been reversed on its internet neutrality order by the U.S. Sixth Circuit. In all likelihood, the Supreme Court will affirm that. But by wiping out that authority, it leaves a gap. And we know from prior U.S. Court of Appeals decisions when that happened during the first Trump administration, the court said, well, okay, if you're not going to regulate neutrality, the internet, then you cannot tell the states that they also cannot. If you're out, you're out. And so thinking that the same arguments will prevail, the thought is that, okay, well, then the states can step up and regulate. And indeed, New York has already, and that case was just rejected at the US Supreme Court brought by the industry to strike the New York law that allows for, again, a lower rate for internet for the poor. And the Supreme Court said, nope, we're not going to hear that. So the New York law prevails. And so California has jumped on, Minnesota is jumping on, Maryland has jumped on the effort to step in and regulate, including on the subject of rates. So that's a big deal. All this on the back of the Loper Bright opinion, some of you may have heard of last summer, that where the U.S. Supreme Court said the last 40 years of deference to agencies, federal agencies, we don't like that. And so they struck that law down, a Chevron decision from, I think I said 30, 40 years ago. And so the authority of agencies at the federal level in particular have been struck hard in the last year, including the FCC. Let's see, sorry. I said ACP is probably dead on arrival. What's the DOGE impact on the FCC? It's not entirely clear. He hasn't shown up there, he being Musk, as far as I know. But the new chair of the FCC is appointed by President Trump. I almost said President Musk, I didn't. But the chair has said that he expects that they will be DOGE compliant and do what needs to be done and cut staff and reduce their interest. In fact, there's an interesting swing by the FCC into area, and you've probably heard it. I didn't cite it here, but the DEI issue, it appears the FCC has assumed an authority that isn't apparent, and that is to go after DEI programming by commercial carriers and others. That's going to be a very interesting First Amendment argument to listen to later on. The NTIA, to the extent they're involved in all this, of course, they've got those issues. There's a rumor floating around that FOIA is going to be strengthened with respect to the NTIA. I haven't tracked that down for this meeting, but there is that issue out there. Probably the most interesting part of all this for this group is the Department of Commerce is conducting a rigorous review of BEAD, and that give you the site for that. And the things they're looking at doing, and Congress the same, HR 1870, will be to improve the BEAD programming, which, the argument is that there isn't an inch of actual fiber or connectivity that's been done in all the years since the act was approved. One might argue that the effort is to try and get it right before we start spending money, but that's not the argument being made today. So under this new legislation, if it passes, which hard to say, but it is pushed by the majority, the DEI, obviously, as you've heard, is out. Unused funds, for instance, here in Michigan, I know there was some hope that there'd be some money for some DEI type programs, but that's under this legislation to be returned to the feds. Contractor requirements will be reduced, rendering unreasonably costly deployments unnecessary. Unions, no. Local hiring, no. Climate change, integrity of the system, building it to withstand climate change type storms, no. And there will be no regulation of service or rates. That's not a huge change, but sort of underscored. And there's, of course, the elevation of other than fiber, which the NTIA and FCC and certainly MyHigh were pushing. The wireless folks had been pushing for a long time that that's not fair to them. And of course, now with Mr. Musk involved in Washington, it's not surprising to hear that now satellites connectivity is going to be pushed hard in the new version of BEAD. How this ends up being done and what the impact's going to be is hard to predict. But I think for those who are looking at, the fiber build that it could last for generations, it's probably going to be very different than we were hoping. And I just, HR 339, it's one of several bills out there in Washington that will ease the access to our communities at the for industry's sake, particularly wireless, with less and less local regulations. So cell towers to flourish, little local control over that. So that's the news of the moment that I have. Thank you.
That was a lot.
Yeah, well, I do it in 15 minutes, so that was the question. So I think I did.
Can we ask questions?
I wish you would. It might
Okay.
wake up some of the people that
I know, right?
asleep.
So I mean, I appreciate all the links. I'll look into the stuff more. And I mean, I would think some of the decreasing about the B program, decreasing some of the requirements, I can see where you could make the argument that that will cut some red tape and save costs. I don't remember any sort of diversity, equity, and inclusion factors or requirements or anything in the B program. Do you know if
Well, there was language in the act that required that, and Lynn might be able to help me out. That there had to be certain minimum speeds, and that there had to be involvement with indigent reductions in rates. Lynn, help me out on that.
Yeah, it definitely had, some rate, a low income option for those that were going to be served by BEAD. It also had, I know, you got extra points if you used, businesses that were, owned by, women, Black, different, minority companies. So I know there was some points for that. What else there is in there, I'm not entirely sure. But there was some.
Well, and thanks, Lynn. I appreciate that. My brain's a little addled after looking at everything today. But there certainly was an intent at my high in talking with Eric that, the hope would be that there was maybe a couple $100 million out of the almost 2 billion that could be used for some of the needy in the state, as Lynn just described. So that thought, and that was supported by NTIA. That thought is, of course, now under new leadership, not going to happen. It doesn't appear.
Right,
So-
yeah, the extra money was gonna be used for digital equity efforts throughout the state.
Yeah.
But now
Okay.
maybe to Congress.
Well, so my second question is regarding just lost my train of thought.
It's easy to
Regarding
do
the
all
fixed
this.
wire or the fixed wireless and satellite. So right now, we have all these providers filling out their applications that are due in less than a month that have to focus on fiber build out. I mean, does that have the potential that the rules change at the last minute where somebody's gonna slide in a proposal to say, oh, those, is the federal government gonna now say, well, half of those locations are no longer eligible because they have satellite or they have fixed wireless?
Kelly, that's exactly the debate that's going on with
Okay.
those who want to reduce the red tape and reduce the cost versus the folks who are saying what you're suggesting, which is, wait a minute, there are reasons why that hasn't been rolled out. We're trying to get it right. And if you change the game now, you open up all kinds of issues with the applications that are due, what, in a month?
Yeah, April 7, I believe.
Yeah, and so the concern is it's going to kick back the concern is that on one side is that, well, you haven't done anything. You haven't actually connected anyone. And so the pushback to these changes is, if you make these changes now, you're going to push it back even further. And of course, no one has said as of yet that they're going to cut the funding. I mean, it's been talked about, but there's no bill yet. But that, the more this stews there in Congress, and the more they're willing to get into the works of BEAD, the more likely that potential is going to come up. So, yeah, good question. Anybody else?
Anyone else have any questions for Mike? It is interesting times. We'll see how it plays out. Right now, we just have to keep doing what we're doing. The BEAD program is underway. Applicants are, getting their letters of support and their applications in. We actually have Todd Cruz on the call. He is from Frontier. So just wanted to let everyone know that he's on the call. He's the one who pointed out that the applications are due April 9th, and I'm sure he's definitely, I've got that deadline out there. So when it comes to BEAD, I just wanted to give a little bit of a background as we go forward with this. The mapping challenge that we did with MyHigh, right now, we have over 14,000 eligible locations for the BEAD funding. Statewide, there's about 248,000. So, we have a good chunk of that in our county. We're hoping that that doesn't change with, any sort of legislation that comes out that would allow fixed wireless or satellite service. But the first round is due for April 9th, and that first round is specifically for fiber to the home. So that's how we're going forward until we hear otherwise. NTIA should approve those plans by the end of August, if all goes well. But like Mike said, the Department of Commerce is reviewing the BEAD program to help streamline the process, so we'll have to see how that goes. A couple of weeks ago, we did meet with township supervisors to go over the plans that we had received from ISPs. The county has talked to multiple internet service providers. We had some really good discussions. We have a good understanding on what ISPs want to cover, what areas. WOW is not interested in applying for BEAD, so they do not have any plans for that. And the county is meeting with Comcast on Thursday to have an understanding of what they're going to be doing and what they want to apply for. So the next step for us is to help ISPs with their letters of support and resolutions. So part of the BEAD application process is internet service providers get points if they get letters of support from their townships and cities that they're going into, and also the county overall, as well as community anchor institutions and nonprofits. So this is a really good group that we can leverage to get those letters of support with our community colleges and schools and libraries and stuff that we have involved. So we've been trying to help streamline that process. And most have sent us draft letters of support. I think we haven't received letters from Frontier or Comcast, but we have received letters from the others. So I plan on putting those together kind of in one email and sending those out to you along with the resolution, so you can see what the county is supporting. And so after this meeting, hopefully by the end of the week, we'll have those letters of support from all the ISPs and we can forward those on to you guys. The deadline for that, the application is due the 9th of April. So I would think by the end of this month, if townships can get them approved by their boards by the end of the month. And then get them to the ISPs after that. Kelly, do you have anything to add for letters of support?
I guess a couple thoughts. The county's planning on supporting all of the ISPs that we know are planning to submit an application. There's not really any downside to encouraging more internet access, and we want to leave it to the state to kind of rank the applications on their merits. And so we're planning to support all of them that we have worked with. So I would encourage all of you to do that. There are not any of them that we would say, you know, please don't support this company. It's a competitive process. We just want Calhoun to get our share. And then, unless you heard differently, Lynn, my understanding of the rules are if you do work for a local government, that the letters of support do need to be approved by the governing board and not just signed by the CEO or the manager or the supervisor. So it does put a little bit of a crunch on those of you that have, you know, a governing board and open meetings to follow. I don't know what happens if we forward a letter that wasn't approved by the governing board. Maybe that's worth a try. I don't know how somebody at the state's going to sort through all of this anyway and read through them. But I think it's just at this point, all hands on deck to try to. I mean, the worst case scenario would be no company in Calhoun County gets a successful application. Like, that would be horrible. So we really want to help support all of these companies, and most of them, I would say, are planning to expand into a specific area of the county, with a couple of exceptions. So if they approach you, or when you get this, please pay attention to the letters that come from Lynn, and if you could return those, that would be wonderful.
Yes, Jeff.
So we meet March 17th, and I gotta put together our agenda Thursday. So would something as simple as our board authorizing the supervisor to send letters of support
Yes.
just
Perfect.
to all those that have applied? Just something
Perfect.
simple as that, then we can do the letters. Okay.
That's a great idea, Jeff. That's a great, instead of having to feel like you have all of them in hand, just get authorization so that there's a resolution on record that it was approved by the governing board.
Right, good, because it's budget session for most townships too. So is this month. So the agenda is gonna be long enough as it is. Thanks.
I can send you a draft resolution.
Okay, great.
Anyone else have any questions about BEAD?
Good question. So you had sent some drafts for some of the ISPs already. Is that exhaustive? Is that everyone?
I just got another one today.
Okay, all right.
So that's why I'll try and put them all together in one email.
Okay.
So it'll be easier to
Perfect,
find.
thank you.
Yeah.
Who's the other one?
Surf Internet.
Okay.
Okay, I guess we can move on to our subcommittee update. Angela is going to give that one.
Hi, everyone. I'm from the Digital Equity Subcommittee, and we are working on, stopgap measures to make sure that people have access to internet and devices and training when we don't have the infrastructure in place for full broadband at this time. So we continue to learn about programs in Michigan and nationally. In the last few months, we've been talking about the ways in which Calhoun County can engage with other local projects and engage with national organizations that could provide resources to our communities. We had a presentation from Human IT in January, which is a nonprofit that's based in Los Angeles. They also have a Detroit location, and Human IT takes unwanted and used technology from corporations and refurbishes it and distributes it through community programs and through their low-cost retail locations. They also have an online store which people and organizations can sign up for and order things off of that. It includes hotspots, devices like tablets and computers, And their goal is to get those devices into the hands of communities without access. And they serve all the whole East Coast with their Detroit location. It's not just Detroit area. So there are other organizations like TechSoup that specifically work only with nonprofits to provide low cost devices and software. We continue to talk about what's working in Calhoun County. And one of the things that's working very well is Albion's Tech Savvy Seniors program with the Albion College AmeriCorps students. And we've talked about expanding that to other areas of the county. And Kellogg Community College has been talking about increasing their lifelong learning services. Marshall District Library does a lot of work with digital learning in our district. And so we've started scheduling monthly drop-in tech times beyond what we currently do at our township. We're starting at our township halls this month, which Jeff, I'll be in touch with you about Marshall Township, but we're starting with Marengo because they asked for it. So we're there. And we've talked about ways of expanding knowledge of the current programs that exist in Calhoun County, such as distributing information through Meals on Wheels or other services where they're hitting target populations that may not have access to technology or internet. And so we heard from Dr. Paul Frederlino from Michigan State University. He's been working with like Meals on Wheels programs to do digital literacy training in Northern Michigan. Beyond that, we've mostly been talking about the possibility of how to fund startup programs with Calhoun County Senior Services doing mini grants, and also other funding that might become available as the mitten funds are distributed and released from the state of Michigan. So I think that's about it.
Yeah, the Mitten grant has been awarded to the different regions in Michigan. So we're Region 9, which was given to the Southeast Michigan Community Alliance. And they received over $850,000. I believe it's a 4-year program. And unfortunately, though, it's based on reimbursement. So I have a call into the person who is running that to see what the next steps are for him. He knows that we are very involved in digital equity in Calhoun, so I know some of those funds will be, something that we can definitely go after for our efforts with digital equity. We just need to have a little bit more of an ask. We need to make sure we know what we want to ask for. So that should be coming here in 2025, which is exciting.
Lynn, I thought I heard you say something about Southeast Michigan. Maybe you had the wrong region. So it should be Southwest Michigan.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah, Southwest Michigan.
Yes.
Planning
Sorry.
Council, and also they partnered with the South Central Michigan Planning Council, which is our regional planning organization. So those two regional planning organizations went together. So I think that covers like 7 or 8 counties, and we're part of that. And so we are just we were built into the grant application, and it's being administered, I guess, out of, where are they, Berrien County?
Yeah.
But also partnering with the Upjohn Institute, which is in Kalamazoo, which is our regional administrator. And so we really are just trying to understand and make sure that as they deploy those funds, I think they're going to do, if I remember right, the plan is something like an asset map. So we're trying to figure out who's offering what services, how do we fill in the blanks, but then maybe providing staff or resources within each county, including Calhoun, to help people with kind of what Angela was talking about, drop-in places that people can go to get help, to get tech support, that kind of a thing. We just want to make sure, because anytime there's a big regional effort like that, I'm a little skeptical that Calhoun gets, left out in Kalamazoo gobbles up all the money. So we just need to follow up. They said they were going to create some kind of like subcommittees for each of the tasks and kind of, stakeholder groups to make sure that they're deploying those funds. But it's just really a couple $100,000 a year. Some of it's going to go to the staffing for those 2 planning agencies. So, I mean, if we get something out of it, great. I'm not super, I guess, excited about what they'll do with that, but maybe it helps boost the efforts that we're already doing.
Yeah, it's nice to have the grant money, but yeah, we need to look at solutions that are sustainable. So that's one of the other things the digital equity subcommittee is doing.
And the digital equity subcommittee will be meeting soon. And we'll probably rebrand our name to make sure that we're not in the crosshairs of executive orders and congressional review of any of these programs, so that they try to pull the money back. Still do the good things we're doing, but make it clear that we're not trying to be in non-compliance.
Yeah, that is definitely the trend. There's other counties that have already changed their name. I know the Holland area has changed theirs to Digital Opportunities, I think. There's also Digital Empowerment. So there's a few different, even the federal groups are changing their names as well, so. Okay, I guess next we have member updates. Does anyone have anything to share that's going on in your area? Or any questions?
I wanted to ask Josh, and this is probably like really putting him on the spot, but we're wondering kind of the situation about providing internet to the Ford Blue Oval site. Is that something that the city is considering, or is the hope that the BEAD funding will help fill that gap? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I already secured a contract with Windstream. They're a pretty large bandwidth provider. They have a main connection, I think, being built with them, and then Comcast has a redundant connection. So while our service does exist on site currently for the construction project,
Okay.
I'll be there for the long haul.
So there is a plan already in place to serve that site, and like potentially anybody that's on the way to the site, or no?
By us or by the future provider?
Both, either, I don't know.
So we are capped to the city limits, so while we can pass through Marshall Township to get there, we cannot provide service to anybody that the address does not exist in the Marshall city limits.
Gotcha.
I'm speculating, but I know there's a want for that to change, to be able to branch out, but that's just talked about at this time. There's no future plans to actually do that. As far as being able to connect to either of those providers, my understanding is Comcast has to have a franchise agreement to operate at the Ford site because it is in the city limits. And once they obtain that franchise agreement, they're basically free to operate within the city of Marshall. Whether or not they intend on going past the site, I don't know. I spoke to their government affairs individual. He didn't have a lot of knowledge at the time as far as what their future plans were, whether they will branch out or stay there. And I don't know if that'll offer more connectivity to Marshall Township residents as well. They're already right there. I mean, their connection already comes that far, and they don't branch very far into the township now. So I wouldn't expect that this is going to change that.
Thank you for that. And Lynn and I are meeting with, and Doug are meeting with Comcast later this week. So we will put them on the spot too and see if we can, I mean, it's just helpful as we're trying to figure out a strategy for the whole county. So thank you.
Yeah, yep.
Anything else? Next, we have citizen time. Our one citizen is Todd.
Still there.
Maybe not. All
Take
right.
it, Todd Cruz at Frontier.
Yes.
I just heard Todd. I didn't know I was going to be a citizen, so
Well, you are.
hopefully not like in the French Revolution sense. So, well, good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity. I just wanted to, listen in on the conversation. I work a 5-state region, sometimes 7 states. Frontier's in 25, and we had like 10 or 12 states going at the same time. So it's been a crazy time for us. I appreciate the time and dedication you put in to this effort. We did reply to the RFI with some maps, so we're finalizing that. Because the broadband office uses hex bins, so we have to pick these, the hexagons, so we're just confirming. Because once you put those in your applications, you're obligated to build to every location, so just finalizing that. If you have questions, I didn't really have anything to present because we responded to the RFI, that's the geography. I would say this about letters. Michigan's pretty heavy in terms of quantity, but when we work with anybody that's supportive, we try and do an interview and craft specific letters to add some quality and local insights. So again, if anybody is interested and supportive, we'll do some ghostwriting and work that in, but the local priorities, insights, demographics that would be benefited by broadband, all of that is what the reviewers are looking for. The last thing I'll mention, if you're comparing ISPs, you can always look at frontier.com/shop, and it has all of our pricing and speeds. In general, we're frenemies, right? We avoid collusion, but we're competing with each other. Sometimes there's overlap, sometimes there's, only one ISP pursuing things. So I've seen all kinds of combinations like that. The last thing I'll say, because you have other things to cover and you've spent time already. If you haven't seen the media coverage, Frontier is being acquired by Verizon. So most likely by the end of this year, everything will become Verizon. And to be clear, they're buying all of our assets in 25 states, all legal entities, any legal agreements. So if we win some BEAD grants through MyHigh, that would become the obligation of Verizon to build that out. I'll leave it at that unless there's questions. Lynn, thanks for communicating with me and helping us through the process.
No problem. Thank you. All right, is there anything else for the good of the order? All right, well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate you coming out.